Welcome back to yet another session on tenses. In the previous class, we looked at the different types of present tense, and in this class, we'll be looking at the different types of past tense. So, as we said before, there are again four types of past tense. One is the simple tense, continuous tense, perfect tense, and perfect continuous tense. I hope you remember the forms when we did these tenses in the previous class. Let's start with the first one, simple past tense. Simple past tense, as we know, is an action which happened in the past, any time in the past. So in this timeline, just before this present moment, it can be any time from here to here. Simple past takes so much of time period. But one specific thing we need to remember about simple past is that whenever we use this form of tense, we specify the time or moment of action. That is, we specify whether it is yesterday or 2 months ago or in 1990 or in March 2020. It can be any of these forms. So a simple past tense is used to indicate an action which happened in the past, especially with a specification of the time or moment of action. Now, when do we use a simple past tense? When you want to narrate a story in the past in a direct chronological order, we use simple past. Remember, the simple tense takes the forms of do. So in the past tense, the form of do is did plus the verb. So this is the form for simple past tense. Let's take an example. I slept early yesterday. Now remember, here I have specified the time of action, yesterday, and the form of verb here is slept, which is did plus sleep. So if you want to narrate a story, coming back to the time when we use this, when you want to narrate a story in the chronological order, you use a simple past tense. Similarly, when you want to express a past habit, you can use simple past tense. For example, he quarreled with everyone almost every day. Now this sentence, it refers to a past habit because he quarreled with everyone almost every day, but now he has changed. He does not quarrel with anyone anymore. So he quarreled. This is the simple past form of the verb that is used, did plus quarrel. Similarly, when you want to refer to a conditional clause, okay, when you're using a conditional clause of type 2, you are yet to learn the conditional clauses, but the type 2 conditional clause is one where you use the simple past tense. For example, the conditional part of that sentence takes the simple past form. If you worked hard, you would pass the test. If you worked hard. Now here the conditional clause, okay, the clause which takes the conditional word if, that takes the simple past form in the type 2 order. Similarly, remember, we use these kind of specific words when specific words which represent the time of action when we use simple past. So just to recap, simple past takes the form of did plus V. It is an action which happened any time in the past, and there is a specification of the time of action. You can use a simple past form when you want to narrate a story, or when you want to express a past habit, or when you want to use the type 2 conditional clause. Okay, the first part, the conditional clause, takes the simple past form. The second type of past tense is what we call the past continuous tense. Past continuous tense is an action in the past. It was a continuous action. It started at a time in the past, continued for a shorter period of time, and then stopped. So it's a past continuous tense. Okay? So a past continuous tense refers to an action which started in the past, it continued for some time in the past, and then came to an end in the past itself. So it's an action of limited duration. And the form we use for past continuous tense is was or were, depending on the number of the noun, plus the verb plus ing. So an action of limited duration. Let's look at an example. Yesterday, at this time, I was playing with my friends. So yesterday at this time, there is a specification, yesterday, and it was a continuous action. I was playing with my friends for quite some time. So continuous action is represented by was plus verb play plus ing. Now, past continuous tense is also used when there is a continuous action which is interrupted by another action. Let's take another example. I was reading a book when he came. So here there are two actions. Reading a book is one action, and come is another action. Now here you see that one action was continuous. So I was reading a book, that was a continuous action, and this reading was interrupted by the presence of him. Okay, so past continuous can be used to represent a continuous action which came to an end when an interruption came. So that is the second use of past continuous form. The third one is when you want to talk about two continuous actions in the past, when there are two parallel actions in the past, you can use the past continuous tense. For example, Nero was playing the violin when Rome was burning. So here you see that there are two parallel actions which are continuous in nature, which happen at the same time. So when Nero was playing the violin, Rome was burning. Two continuous actions that happen parallelly. Next one, when you want to refer to a temporary action, okay, when you want to refer to a temporary action, we use past continuous tense, and if it's a more permanent action, we use simple past tense. Let me illustrate this with an example. I stayed in hostel all through my student days. Let me write one more example. During the 2 months I spent in JNU, I was staying with a friend. Now look at these two sentences. I stayed in hostel all through my student days. Now this is a more permanent action. Okay, all through my student days, span of action which continued for a long time. Now that is a more a permanent action. So there we use simple past, and when you want to refer to a temporary action, during the 2 months I spent in JNU, it is not as long as all my student days. So the 2 months that I spent in JNU, I was staying with a friend. Okay, so you can use past continuous tense to refer to temporary actions, and if the action is more permanent in nature, you can use a simple past tense there. You can also use past continuous to refer to a habit of the past, of unpleasant nature especially. For example, he was always quarreling with his neighbors. He was always quarreling with his neighbors. So it's a habit of the past, okay, and it's of an unpleasant nature. So let's look at this once more. We use the past continuous tense when you want to refer to an action of limited duration that happened in the past. That is, it's an action in the past, okay, back from the present moment, an action which started some time in the past, continued for some time, and then came to an end in the past itself. So the form that we use is was or were plus verb plus ing, depending on whether the noun is singular or plural. We also use past continuous to refer to a continuous action which is interrupted by another action. We can use past continuous tense when you want to refer to two parallel actions happening, continuously happening in the past. We can use past continuous tense to refer to a temporary action, and also to refer to a habit of the past, habit in the past of an unpleasant nature. The third type of past tense is what we call the past perfect tense. The past perfect tense is a past in the past. That is, when you want to refer to two incidents in the past and you want to refer to the earlier one, we use the past perfect tense. Let's look at the timeline. Suppose one incident happened at this point of time, another incident happened at this point of time. You can use simple past to refer to this incident, and when these two incidents are connected, you can use past perfect to refer to the earlier incident. So past perfect tense, as we said, is past in the past. That is, when there are two incidents, chronologically earlier incident will take the past perfect tense, and the later incident will take the simple past tense. For example, the fire had already destroyed the house before the firemen arrived. Look at this sentence. We have two actions here. The fire had already destroyed the house. The firemen arrived. We have two actions here. So the action which happened earlier is the fire destroying the house. So we have used the past perfect tense to refer to that incident. And the later incident is the fireman arriving. So we use simple past tense to refer to the second incident. So this is the context in which we use past perfect tense. Similarly, we can use past perfect tense along with certain verbs like hope, plan, think, expect, etc. When you want to say that what you had hoped for or what you had expected did not happen. Okay? So an example would be, we had hoped to see her better, but she passed away. So we had hoped to see her better, but she passed away. So along with the words like hope, plan, think, expect, if you want to say that what you had hoped or expected did not happen, you can use the past perfect tense. Similarly, with phrases like after, before, as soon as, already, etc., we commonly use the past perfect tense. The last and the fourth type of the past tense is the past perfect continuous tense. Past perfect continuous tense, if you remember the present perfect continuous tense, we had said that it is a longer span of time when compared to the present continuous tense. Now here, similarly, the past perfect continuous tense also refers to an action over a longer span of the time in the past. Okay? This is an action which happened long back in the past, it continued and then came to an end in the past itself. So that is the past perfect continuous tense. So if you want to talk about an activity or an action that happened continuously in the past and came to an end in the past itself, we can use the past perfect continuous tense. Now what is the form of past perfect continuous tense? This is had been plus verb plus ing. The form for the past perfect tense, as we said in the previous example, was had plus the V3 form of the verb. Had plus the V3 form of the verb. And for past perfect continuous tense is had been plus verb plus ing. Now, remember this is an action that continually happened for a longer period of time in the past. Now, if the past perfect continuous action highlights the continuity or the duration of the action, the past perfect tense, it emphasizes the completion of the action. So if you remember, we said the past perfect tense is an action that was completed in the past itself. Past perfect continuous tense is also completed in the past. But what is the difference? The emphasis is on the continuous action or the duration of the action. And here in the past perfect tense, it is the completion of the action which is the emphasis. Now moving on. When we use the past perfect continuous tense, we use that to show how long the action happened. But when we use it in the past perfect tense, we try to show how many times the action happened. Let's take an example. She had been looking for the book for months. She had been looking for the book for months. So, for months is the duration. It shows the duration, it shows the continuous action, and it shows how long the action had happened. She had been looking, she had been searching for that book for a longer span of time. It shows the duration. The duration is what is given the emphasis here. But in the present perfect tense, we look at how many times it happened. Now an example for the past. In the past perfect tense, we look at how many times the action has happened. For example, in the past perfect, we'll be saying, I had warned him several times. So the emphasis of both these are different, and that is what makes these two things different. In the past perfect continuous action, we focus on the duration. In the past perfect action, we look at the completion. We focus on the number of times the action had happened in the past. So let's take one more example and wind this session up. John had been suffering from fever when I visited him. Another example. John was suffering from fever when I visited him. Now, in these two sentences, can you identify the tense in which these two sentences are used? In the first one, John had been suffering from fever, and the second one, it is John was suffering from fever. So the first sentence is a past perfect continuous tense. Okay, it's used in past perfect continuous tense, and the second sentence is used in past continuous tense. Now, what is the difference in meaning between these two sentences? John had been suffering from fever when I visited him. It means that when I visited him, he was no longer suffering from fever. His fever had completely cured. Okay? But in the second sentence, John was suffering from fever when I visited him. It means that John had fever when I went to meet him. So remember, in all these tenses, it helps us to locate the action. It helps us to understand the nuances of meaning if they are properly used. So just to wind up, we talked about the 4 different types of tenses in the past tense itself, 4 different forms of the past tense. The first one was simple past, which happened in the past with a specification of the time period. The second one was past continuous tense, which was of a shorter time span, okay? And it was always clubbed with another action. One action was continuous, the other action interrupted. That's when you use the past continuous tense. Then we looked at the past perfect tense, wherein we said that there was an emphasis on the sense of completion. And in the past perfect continuous tense, we said that the emphasis, even though the action is complete, the emphasis is on the duration. It is on the duration. So I hope you've had a clear idea about the two tenses, the present tense and the past tense, the different forms of present tense and past tense, when to use them, and the examples. We will have further discussions in the other classes. Thank you.